Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to the One Heart, One Earth Global Healing Summit for June 2020. Our theme has been creating a sustainable future, and I am your host, Lisa Gunshore, for this summit. And welcome to the Buddhist Biohacker channel, where we are focused on our mission, which is creating conscious content for 1111D. We have had the most amazing 7 days. I can't believe it's been 7 days. It feels like it's been just a few hours. And we are coming up on our last presentation of today, going into our last day of presentations tomorrow. The Schumann resonance spiked to 66. So if you were up last night, you were probably feeling that vibration. And I hope that some of it has to do with all of the amazing presenters that are part of this summit and all of you, the participants, as we are raising the vibration of the planet as we head towards the golden age and the new reality. For everybody who's joining live, welcome in. I see you guys coming in. Please feel free to use the chat box to your right if you want to ask questions, share your comments and stories. We'd love to have it. I'll be coming back on at the end of the presentation if you have to share any of those questions with your presenter tonight. And please, please, please don't forget to click the subscribe button right below here. We are on a mission to get to 1,000 subscribers. Once we do that, we get our community page, which means we're a one-stop shop for our community of light here on YouTube. And we get super chat, which I don't even know what that is, but that's what you get when you get to 1,000 subscribers. And I think we kind of want super chat for all of the superheroes that we are on this channel. So with all of that said and done, I am very, very excited to welcome our next guest, Vishali. Welcome, welcome to our summit. And we're going to hand it off to you. So you guys enjoy the presentation, enjoy Vishali, and I'll see you at the end if you have questions or comments.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
So hi, my name is Vishali Shaheen, and I am a Vortex tour guide here in Sedona, Arizona, and also a spiritual counselor. Before living in Sedona, I lived in the Bay Area in California, and I was a registered nurse there. I've been a registered nurse for about 34 years. In the beginning of my career in nursing, I found myself with a massive spiritual awakening and living in an ashram in India and also in New York State, where I lived in this ashram for about 5 years straight. So when I finally moved to live in Sedona, this spirituality that I really was part of my life now, and the vortex energy of Sedona really merged very beautifully. And I created a business called Sedona Healing Journey, where I take people on the land. My presentation is called, Now That You Have Meditated, What You Do with Your Mind for the Rest of the Day Matters. Now that is an interesting title, but the fact is, what we do with our mind for the rest of the day does matter. I know people who meditate and meditate deeply, and I can say that they still have a propensity to kind of come out and kick the dog, so to speak. So again, what we do matters. This summit is also about creating a sustainable future. And when you look at the outside world right now, it's not really that sustainable, is it? Whether it's political or social or definitely environmental, we are not creating a sustainable future at the moment. You know, look at what we're doing. So what we're creating is what we're seeing. It's being created by our collective shadow. Everything that we see in our world is in our environment now. Just look around you right now. Is created by a thought first. Whether it's the clothes you're wearing or the computer you're looking at or whatever you're using in your world, it starts with a thought. And these thoughts then become manifest. So when we look at the outside world, we can also see that these thoughts are things and they're actually creating. It's as if we have two minds. We have the ego mind, which is really our worries, our concerns, our fears, our judgments. It's all the things that we're fairly familiar with. And then we have the ego mind that gets even deeper. It gets into viciousness and hatefulness and cruelty and murder. Now, thank God we don't all act on that, but a lot of us do still. But this is all part of the same ego thought system. So that kind of thinking from the ego's point of view is not sustainable. And it's also a master of separation. The ego has fractured into not only billions of people, but billions of ways to keep us separate. So when you even think of just our one planet, planet Earth, just consider what, how we have really separated into so many different ways. We have different countries, so we have different cultures, provinces, states, cities, towns, but then we are in different races, different political arenas, different, opinions. We're in, there's just so much differences. And of course we have 7 billion people. Just take the religions that are, the three main religions, let alone all the others, but even our 3 main religions, whether it's Islam, Christianity, or Judaism, each one of them has a gazillion denominations. And each denomination thinks they're the ones that are going to heaven and everybody else is going to hell. Now, we can kind of get a giggle out of that right now, but we do know people who will look you straight in the face and very seriously say that's true. So the ego likes to be different and special. And in doing so, it pits itself against itself, really, because there's only one ego mind. But it keeps this story of separation so easy to fall into, and the stories are so compelling. And the stories about the ego mind is so compelling that we literally think it is us. We think we are all these stories. So when we see it's by design, by the ego mind's design, to have all this separation happening, it's fractured so many different ways, it keeps our attention outside. And if we're outside in all these problems, and the world right now is very interesting. There's a lot of, if you want to call them problems or situations, but we've never seen this kind of energy on this planet before. And as long as the ego mind has us really distracted by all this outside energy, there's one place we are not, and that's inside. It's where our shadow is created and maintained, and our hurts, our issues, our thought systems, all these things that make us, at least what we think is us, is coming from the shadow side, our hurts and our judgments and all these things. But this thought system of the ego is completely antithetical to our God self or our higher self. Whatever works for you, substitute those words, because I will use God and higher self. But if those words don't work for you, just put whatever word does. But the ego mind is antithetical to our God self, which is oneness, unity, love, connection. There is no separation. It is non-duality. So love, God's world, is sustainable. But it's like we took this ego overlay and just really put it on top of all of this stillness. And again, we think that it is us. It's usurped the inner throne and has taken over, at least wants to take over, the world. And for so many people, as you can see, that is the case. But this is the process of waking up. This disidentifying with the very thing that we think is us. Which thought system that you put most of your attention on determines your day and your life. Which thought system really determines the outcome of our life. So are we really thinking with our ego all the time, or are we putting our attention as much as we can on God? How we come through this time of COVID, they say, will really be how we live the rest of our life. We're going through like an eye of a needle right now. It's a turning point for many of us, where as we go through this time, this very stressful time that we're in right now, we're going through this and we're getting this opportunity to look at, to release, to let go of the shadow. And as we're going through the eye of the needle, we can come through letting all that go. And it's not like you'll never see your ego again, possibly, but how are you handling it? Really, that's the main thing. What are we doing with it? So as we come through this eye of the needle, who are we? Who are we really? So I'd like to start out by bringing us to an experience of our God self, an experience of our higher self. Because it's from our God self, it's from this point of view that change can happen. The ego mind will not change. It's not designed to change. But we try to make our changes from there. But it's only from God's point of view that we can actually make change. So with the ego overlay gone, who are we? We have all in our lifetime experienced some kind of unconditional love, whether it's for a partner or a child in your life or an animal, or there's just some way that we have all experienced this unconditional love. Or maybe you've had experiences in meditation of bliss and oneness. But we have so many spiritual experiences that go by us all throughout the day that we don't even notice. We take them for granted. And it goes right by our awareness. When people are on tour with me here in Sedona, I have them look at the red rocks and I have them describe the rocks. Now, there is something powerful going on in Sedona. People do come here for spiritual awakening and for spiritual connection. So there is something going on here. People will come here and they will say, this is home. I feel so at home here. And they really, some people want to move or they wish they could move here. But the fact is, the energy of Sedona has just brought them easily and effortlessly to their own heart, their own center, and that's home. So what they're thinking is Sedona. It's not at all. It's just that the energy is bringing them home. And of course, no matter where you are or where you go, there you are. So you don't need to be in Sedona or any place special to have these experiences because it is who we are. But when I do have people here, I do have them look at the rocks and describe the rocks. And they'll say things like majestic, magnificent, powerful, beautiful, awe, or just calming, relaxing. See, we're always looking for the big dramatic words, but God can be very subtle. So sometimes when I ask people what they're seeing in the rocks, they're looking for this big event. I go, no, notice just describe them. Well, they're beautiful. Yeah, that's right, they're beautiful. But what's behind that beautiful? These are our spiritual experiences that we're actually taking for granted. We just think, oh, it's beautiful. But no, we're going to actually slow it down in a bit. But what I'd like to tell them is that the rocks are actually nothing. They're neutral. They're just sitting there, mind their own business. And we come along and we put all of our greatness onto the rocks. We're doing this all the time. We're projecting onto everything all the time because in reality, the whole world is one screen of stillness with this ego overlay, making a story, making all these stories. But the fact is that, when we're here, these rocks are neutral. And we're taking our words and putting it on the rocks. So I'd like to tell people, no, rocks are nothing. They're just sitting there. You just described yourself. And so for many people, it's like, never thought of it that way. But we are so familiar with our ego words, but we're not always familiar with our higher selves words. We let them go by too quickly. So if I were to ask you, and I'm not, but if I were to ask you what it's like to be angry or frustrated, you could tell me. And not only could you tell me, by the time you're done telling me, you would be angry or frustrated. So why go there? I'm not asking you to do that. But the point is, we will then, let's say something happens and you get very upset with somebody and you decide to call your family and your friends for validation. Did that really happen? She did this and she did that. And yes, you get validation. And it can go on for days. You might not be able to sleep that night. Maybe it goes on for another day. Maybe you're calling in a whole bunch of new friends the next day. And maybe it's going on for a few weeks. If it goes on for years, you just created a grudge. But we are so familiar with having to talk about this all the time, that we know exactly how these words happen. But I'm sure you don't call your mom and say, hey, mom, I just saw a flower, and man, did I have the most transcendental experience with this flower. Now, maybe some of you do, but here's the thing. You don't call her back the next day and say, hey, I'm still thinking about that flower. I want you to hear more about it. And you don't call all your friends and let them know about this experience you're having with nature over and over again. But we do it with our ego mind. That's how we get conditioned. We believe it. We think that's us. But in reality, we're really our God self. So we are having these spiritual experiences all the time. And they're going by us too quickly. So we're going to do a short, brief meditation where we're going to slow it down and really connect with the deepest part of our being. So go ahead and just fix your posture for meditation. Put your feet on the ground, your shoulders back. If you're cross-legged, that's great. But go ahead and take a nice deep breath in, all the way to the top of your head. And as you exhale, gently close your eyes. And let that breath just relax you all the way down through your entire being. Taking another breath in when you're ready, all the way to the top of your head. And let that breath again relax you. And check your body. Are there any holdings? Move your shoulder if you have to. Move your hip if you need to. And then just let that go. With your next breath, I want you to really bring to your awareness, imagine a scene in nature, someplace that you really resonate with, someplace that you love to be. And just bring that up. And as I ask people here, I want you to look at that and give this image in your mind some adjectives. And maybe they'll be the same as people here. Beautiful, inspiring, peaceful. Whatever comes up for you, just let that be your word. And now I want to ask you, where in your body does this word live? Where in your body do you know that that scene evoked in you these words? Is it in your third chakra or solar plexus area? Is it maybe in your heart, your shoulders? Just check. The top of your head or your seventh chakra? And notice the energy. Is it scintillating? Is it vibrating? Does it move? Or does it just have a presence? And remember, notice the subtle. We're not always going for big. Notice the subtle if that's what's there. On your next breath in, just breathe into this energy and see if you can move it. Does it move up or down your hands? Does it extend around your body or not? Does it just maintain a presence? Just notice, without judgment or without thought, just notice the energy moving in your body. And on your next breath in, I want you to breathe in all the way to the top of your head. And I want you to remember how this energy moves in your body or how this energy lives in your body. And then taking another breath in when you're ready. And exhaling, gently open your eyes. And just bring this experience of connection with you. Because this came from the stillness of your inner being. This did not come from anywhere else but that still place. So just open your eyes and take a moment to consider that something that we just sometimes take for granted literally has a way that moves through our neurology. So how did it? These are our spiritual experiences. We just don't slow it down enough to appreciate them throughout the day. I'm sure we have all had the experience of being at the ocean, watching the sunset, and you're in a place of reverie. You're just really in this peaceful place. And as soon as the sun sets, maybe not for all of you, but I know for some, as soon as the sun sets, it's like, hey, what do you want to do for dinner tonight? It's almost like the ego mind's going, uh-oh, they're getting spiritual on me. Well, the sun's going to set in about 5 minutes. I'll give them 5 minutes. But as soon as it's done, I'm back online. And so we move off that experience and we're on with the next thing. But what if we take something that we see, a flower or a beautiful thing, or maybe just looking at a dog that makes you happy, and stopping for a moment and taking that in and just breathing that in. If we did this several times a day, throughout our day, just a few seconds here and there, it actually will start to break rapport with our ego mind. Because we're connecting with that peaceful center within us more often. So right after 9/11, I went into a workshop with a teacher. It was probably about 2 weeks after 9/11. And she said to a group of 1,000 people, she said that she had to consider what she did to contribute to that event. And of course, at first, my ego was like, I'm innocent. I didn't do anything. But then I also know about the quantum field enough to realize, well, I did do something. What's up with this story? Where's she going to go with this? And she said, I'm not anti-American. I'm not pro-terrorism. I'm not even political. But what did I do to contribute to that event? And she mentioned the butterfly effect. If you know what the butterfly effect is, it's from chaos theory. If you don't, it is in chaos theory, there is this theory that even the subtle flapping of the butterfly's wings will create a current that can start a cyclone somewhere else. So if the subtle flapping of a butterfly's wings can create a cyclone, what on earth are we doing with our anger and our frustration and our just getting at it with people and being triggered all the time? And and not only us, but 7 billion people. Well, there's one way to know what happens. Take a look what's going on right now. So when she said this, an image came to my mind of like 2 clouds in the sky. And every time I had a kind, caring, loving, altruistic thought for myself and others, it's as if it went into one cloud. And every time I had a judgmental, hateful, hurtful thought, like, why do they do that? How come all these things of exclusion and those people and how dare they, usually has to do with politics. Working on that one, that's actually been a great thing for a lot of people, including me. It would go into another cloud. Now, both clouds are going to fill to fruition, and they're going to discharge onto the planet. And I had to consider which one of these clouds I wanted to contribute to more. I didn't say only, because the ego wants to set us up for failure. Oh, I can't do it. I didn't do it right all day long. No, more. Which one do I want to contribute to more? And so at the time I lived in the Bay Area, and I realized that I had cars cutting me off all the time. So in the morning, I would be meditating in Chin Mudra. Chin Mudra is when you put your thumbs and forefingers together. It circulates the energy of peace within your body when you're meditating. So in the morning, I was in Chin Mudra doing my meditations. In the afternoon, I was giving the one finger salute, screaming at traffic. And I realized that I was contributing to the one cloud I didn't want to, but I was doing it quite often. And to be honest, at that time, it wasn't just the cars I was raging at, it was almost everything. But the cars were getting it, in that moment. And so I decided that I was going to start blessing the cars. I had a choice now. When she pointed it out, I realized I had a choice. They say you can choose, but you can only choose when you realize you have a choice. So at this moment, I went, oh, all right, I've got a choice. So I put my hand up to bless a car and I would pull it back. The ego doesn't die easily. And I was like, I'm full of adrenaline. Why the heck should I bless that person? And of course, the ego loves to justify. It justifies all the time. And so I really want to do this. Remember, the ego is not going to do this, but our higher self will. So I had to drop it and had to move into my heart and start blessing the cars. Well, that being said, about 6 months later, because the ego does have momentum, about 6 months later, I was being very successful at doing this. Cars stopped cutting me off. And I was quite surprised. It was, at first I was like, what the heck happened here? I kind of missed blessing cars because it was kind of fun. But I realized that I had changed. The outside world isn't happening to us. The outside world is happening by us. So I took this idea to work. And there was a doctor there that scared the heck out of me. She was not nice. She was my next passing car. As a matter of fact, everything became my next passing car. And I blessed her and I even said good morning to her and then she promptly ignored me. But this went on for a while. But one day she turned around and she started talking to me and we became friends at work. So the outside world isn't happening to us, it's happening by us. Look at our relationships. Whether it's people that you're married to or people that you're in relationship with, parents, siblings, partners, we have some very amazing, successful relationships. And we have some pretty horrific relationships that trigger the heck out of us. And it's all coming from our thoughts towards that person. When you have two egos going at it, or they're coming from the ego centers, there is no way that it can be anything different than an argument. Why? Because that is what the ego does. It's in its thought system. It has no other choice. It's absolutely within its realms. It has no other idea how to do it. So after like beating your head against a wall with somebody, you haven't heard me, you need to listen to me, that kind of thing. And of course, yes, of course, that's true, but it's not going to happen from the ego's point of view until one of you, somebody says, this isn't working. I think I'll come up to my heart. No, there's nothing to pound against. As long as one person shifts the energy, now you're in your heart and that energy can shift. And now you can actually have a conversation that's conscious. Do you remember John Gray? He wrote the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I was in a workshop with him decades ago. And he was telling us at that time that, and he's the teacher, he was telling us at that time that he got into a fight with his wife, or he was trying to get into a fight with his wife. He was just being in his ego and he wanted to just be heard and be right. And she was like, nope, John, not having this conversation, not until you move up into your heart. And he's like, yeah, but. And she says, no, there is no yeah, but. I'm leaving the room. I'll be back in 5 minutes. And when you get in your heart, we'll have this conversation. So you see, even the coaches sometimes need to be reminded, right? So they had a conscious conversation. From two egos, you're only going to get a fight. And that's this amazing, but this is the amazing way in which we separate all over the planet, that there is nothing to do but fighting unless we get into our hearts. Like I said before, this is a screen of stillness and there's all this overlay on it. But as we start to look at our shadow and start to release or clear and do the inner work, we can come back to stillness. Now, you don't have to heal every single little thing in order to be enlightened or free from your ego. If we did, we'd have to be here forever. So you don't have to heal and let go of every little thing. But as we clearing out the shadow and keep clearing out the shadow, we let go of so much, healing it, letting it go, doing that inner work, that at some point we go, oh, this isn't actually me. So when we can finally see that, then we can surrender the rest to God. But until we think it's us, we're working on it. And when we're finally free enough, we let it go. So we've all heard of this idea of karma and reincarnation. Now, actually, in reality, even quantum physics will tell you this, it's all happening all at once. It's happening all at once and it's already over. Contemplate that one. But that being said, reincarnation isn't a linear thing. We're reviewing these lifetimes, but it's already completed. But the fact is, if from the ego's point of view, it has us on what the Buddhists call the wheel of samsara. A more layman's term is called like a hamster wheel of life. Born, and we die, we get reborn, another lifetime. And so this in this ego's thought system here, it gives us the illusion that we're getting more spiritual. Even in this lifetime, you can see, I used to be negative and now I'm positive. I used to hate people and now I don't. So it gives us the illusion of once being disempowered, now being empowered. Once having crappy boundaries, having better boundaries. And all this is absolutely useful. Absolutely it is. But if you're looking to wake up completely, God's thought system is here. The ego's thought system is here. They're two mutually exclusive thought systems. So from this point of view, we are stuck in the hamster wheel of life. We are stuck in the wheel of samsara. And until we finally have this thought, I've been here a couple of billion times. So there has got to be another way. As soon as we have this thought, there's got to be another way, it's like we're on the first rung of the ladder up to God. We are ascending. There's so many different ways to look at ascension, but ascending is really leaving the ego mind behind and coming up to where God is. We can't bring God into the illusion. We're bringing us up to where God is. So this whole idea of being stuck in this hamster wheel of life, no matter which spiritual path I had seen, there always is this teaching that we are over-identified with the ego mind. Well, how do you get out of here if we're so identified with it? So this whole idea is how do you get some distance from this ego mind easily? And though I had heard of this, I was still working on my ego. I was still doing the things that I had to do but see, again, I'm stuck in the wheel of samsara. And so it wasn't until I came across a book, Michael A. Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, did this whole thing snap into place for me. He has a chapter called The Inner Roommate, where he externalizes the ego mind and then has us realize that if it was a real person, we wouldn't hang out with it. So when I have people on tour here, we do this exercise. So I'm going to put us through a very brief exercise. And in it, I will tell you what we're going to do, no surprises, as we're going to pretend that we can take the energy of the ego out of our body and put it on a couch next to us in our mind's eye. And then we're going to have a conversation with it. We're going to personify it and have a conversation with it. When you come out of this short meditation, I'm going to have a question for you. So again, get comfortable, feet on the ground, cross-legged, shoulders back. Taking a deep breath in and then exhaling. Now take another deep breath in, all the way up to the top of your head. And as you exhale, gently close your eyes. And let that breath just relax you all the way through. Take another deep breath all the way to the top of your head. And again, let that exhale just relax every bit of your body. On your next breath in, pretend you can breathe out the energy of the ego. So as you're breathing in, imagine this energy is coming up your torso, out the top of your head, and on a couch in your mind's eye next to you. Well, right now it's just a blob of energy. So personify it. Wow. As soon as you did that, it has a lot to say. All the shoulds and shouldn'ts and how comes and the whys and the self-righteousness and you're trying to come at it with some wisdom to maybe alleviate some of its stress. Nope, you're not hearing me. You don't get it. There's a lot to worry about. Look at the world. I look at my partner and I'm jealous and I'm fearful and I have anxiety attacks and you're like, okay. And you're trying to give it some wisdom, but it's not interested. It just wants to complain. And it is doing a really good job. It's getting into its shame and its guilt and its past lives and all these other things, all this kinds of stuff that's keeping them wrapped up in this story. And that's okay. That's quite all right. But for now, just leave them on the couch. Leave them on the couch. And you know what? If a name comes to you, give them a name. And leave them on the couch. And then take a deep breath in all the way to the top of your head. And as you exhale, gently open your eyes. Now, first of all, did you name it? Because I don't know if you did, but I named mine Chatty Cathy. That wasn't too original. That's what came up. So Chatty Cathy. But if this person that you spoke to on the couch was a real person, would you actually hang out with them? Now, I know I took what the ego says in the back of our mind. We have this commentary 24/7, like radio station going on if we're really tuning into it. And I condense it down from 24 hours or 18 hours awake down to maybe like 20 seconds. But if we're really honest with ourselves, isn't that what's going on in the back of our head? So if this was a real person, would you hang out with it? And the answer is no, we wouldn't hang out with it. But how on earth do we not hang out with something that we actually think is us? Well, the first time I did this or put this into practice, I was in the kitchen chopping some food. Now, for me to be in the kitchen chopping food, I'd have to be in a good mood. Before COVID, there was just no way you'd find me in the kitchen very often. So, and then I'm happy, and I think I was even singing. And then some niggling goes on in the back of my mind about some story that was going on. And I'm like, yeah. And I was listening to it. I didn't realize I was listening to it until my chopping went from happy chopping to like chopping. And I was like, and I'll say this and she'll say that. And I went like, whoa, that's crazy. I'm just sitting here minding my own business and what's going on here. And that moment I went like, oh, it's not me, it's Chatty Cathy. So I just said, thanks for sharing. I am choosing God. So it's really like I said, we have two minds. We really have three minds. We have our ego mind, we have our God mind, and we have the decision-making mind. Who are we going to hang out with? In that moment, I was able to just stop. This idea of this person on the couch gave me a moment to redirect. So I says, thanks for sharing. I am choosing God. If I'm in it, I had no way of not engaging. But the fact is, as soon as I had that 1 second decision, I chose otherwise. And in that moment, that whole thing went away and I went back to being happy. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. That's amazing. I want to make a point. This is not spiritual bypassing. If you have issues, big issues, things that you need to work on, please, by all means, get the help, do the work, do everything you can to release and let go of these issues that do have us, mired into what we think is us. But this exercise is really good because not everything that we go through has to be examined. Sometimes the ego mind is just trying to bring us down, and we don't have to follow its every whim. So this idea of saying, thanks for sharing, I'm choosing otherwise is a really great time to just let go and not always follow the ego's promptings. And sometimes the ego is very tricky because things just make sense. So there was a time, it was about 2 years ago, that even though I was doing this exercise for several years, I forgot all about God. It can happen. Obviously, it does happen. And this is a story that really just made sense. So I didn't think I had to check in with God because it just made sense. And here's the story. I live in Arizona. My family's in New York. I get a phone call from my mother's 80, she was 87 years old at the time. And she lives alone. She is very strong. She walks around very quickly. She's steady on her feet. She cooks, she cleans, she's good. And one day her neighbor calls me and says to me, I went to visit your mom today, this afternoon, and thank God I did, because the gas was on in the house and the whole house was filled with gas and she didn't know it. And I pushed past her, I shut off the gas, opened up the windows, opened the doors, and you need to know this. And I said, yeah, you're right, I do. Called my brother, who lives 2 blocks from her, and said, all right, look, if she wants to live alone, that's fine. But here's the story. You go over there right now and shut off the gas. She is down to a microwave and the refrigerator. That is it. Go over there right now and shut that stove off. In which he said to me, no, I'm not doing it. And I was like, what? I said, but your mother almost killed herself, but she didn't. And she likes to cook. I'm not doing it. And I was like, are you crazy? You have to. And he says, no, forget it. And so this is not about my siblings, by the way. This is about what went on for me, because I did call my other siblings and did not get support. And I'm thinking, this is crazy. So here's what happened for me over 4 days. The first level of my ego mind was, oh, you mean to tell me that I love my mother more than they do? And they're living right in her neighborhood. I care more than they do. How is that possible? That was the first level. The second level of the ego was this. What if she dies of asphyxiation? I'm gonna be just worried all the time. I'm just be so, and they're living in the neighborhood and they're not taking care of business. What if she dies in her sleep? Well, at least she goes peacefully. That was the next level. The next level was more dramatic, which was, what if she dies in a fire? My poor mom, she's gonna die in a fire. And then her next lifetime will be all filled with fear. She'll have trauma, more trauma than she even needs. Well, you see, the ego kept amping up the game for me. The best part was this one. You mean to tell me I have to pack up my life in Sedona and go live with my healthy 87-year-old mother who could live another 10 years because my family won't protect her? Now, here's the thing. From the ego's point of view, that was a real consideration, and I was considering it. And believe me, I spent days talking to friends and healers and psychics and you name it, right? And I was in it. And then I went, oh, God, oops. Now, when I remembered God after all these days, I didn't say, oh my God, I'm such a failure. I went, man, Chatty Cathy, you're good at this. Now I'm choosing God. And then I cut myself a lot of slack. And then I chose and I sat quietly. Now, here's the thing. We all know answers don't always come very quickly, but this day they did. And almost immediately a thought came, get a camera on the stove. And I was like, God, that's brilliant. So I called my brother, let's get a camera on the stove. And he said, that's a good idea. Let's get 3 cameras. So that's what happens when grace is involved. Now, we have all gone down trajectories where the ego has taken us before. And also there's always self-correcting, but we don't always have to follow the ego's promptings. I almost did. I almost decided to pack up and go live with her. And from my ego's point of view, a camera was not part of the story. It likes drama, and it was creating drama in my life. And God was like, get a camera. And so that's what I did. And honestly, out of the 2 years we've had that camera on her, only once did she have the gas on. She was sleeping. It was early enough that I called one, I would have called him anyway, but I called one of my brothers who went in the house, unlocked the door, shut the stove off, locked her back in, and went home. It's teamwork. So it's brilliant. She gets to live alone. I get to live in Sedona. But this is what happens, just like when we choose one mind over another. So you don't have to be perfect, but we just have to be willing. So in wrapping up, I want to talk about something that we have heard about, and that's bliss bunnies. What's a bliss bunny? It's somebody who hides out in their spiritual centers. It feels good. It's bliss. It's contentment. It's serenity. It's connection. It's oneness. It's all kinds of different experiences, but it's from our upper chakras, up from our spiritual centers, and we're hiding out. We're hanging out there. When I say bliss bunnies, it's because people who choose to do that, of course, there's no reason why you can't have those experiences and do your inner work. But some people choose only to stay there and ignore their shadow. It's too hard to work on sometimes. You know, when you really want to know God fully, it's what we do to get there. Let go of the overlay so we can step in. But this idea of bliss bunnies, let me point out two people that we know about that are definitely in this amazing state, but not bliss bunnies. And that would be Jesus and Buddha. So Jesus and Buddha are not bliss bunnies. We have heard from whether it's true or whether it's mythology, that Christ spent 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, fighting temptation, fighting evil. And these, of course, are Christian terminologies. But what was he doing for 40 days and 40 nights? The same thing we're doing. He was grappling with his ego mind. And when he finally let it go, disidentified or just transcended, however you want to look at it, he then became enlightened and turned around and started teaching us. Same with the Buddha, sitting under the Bodhi tree. He fought temptation as well. What was he fighting? His ego mind. He found the balance, the place of moderation. And he also became enlightened and has turned around and started teaching us. So we are doing exactly the same thing. We are working on our egos like anybody else, letting go. When I was living in the Bay Area, I went to listen to watch a movie that was being put on by the devotees of Mara Baba. Now, Mara Baba was a great guru in India. He was born in the 1800s and died in 1969. But in this presentation, in this video that they were showing, Mara Baba was going through his section of India, and he was taking these sadhus out of, sadhus being a holy man, out of samadhi. Samadhi is this connected meditation of oneness. He was going around India taking these sadhus out of samadhi. And I was confused because at the time, this was a couple of decades ago, I wanted a bypass. And I was like, why is he doing that? Isn't that the point, to meditate to the point of having that as your experience? And his devotees said to me, no, he's doing them a favor. They're not done with their inner work. If they were to leave their bodies hiding out in samadhi, they would have to come back. These people have more work to do, so he's doing them a favor. And of course, if we have these kinds of experiences, absolutely, they are amazing. And we need to do the work, letting go of the shadow, releasing, letting go, so that we can get to the point of surrendering the rest over. So it's about becoming less identified with this overlay and becoming who we really are. It's also about releasing, another way to look at it is releasing the blocks to love's presence. This is the work. Releasing the blocks to love's presence, because the love is always there. So when we start out from God's point of view, we can then change what we need to be. We're surrendering and releasing. From here, nothing happens. We think we're evolving. From here, we're letting go and we're ascending. So I want to leave you with two thoughts. One, we don't have to be perfect as we do this work. We may forget all about God for days. And you know what? Here's a new mantra for you. So what? When you catch yourself, you catch yourself. So just, if you find yourself being hard on yourself, that is the ego. So if it's not uplifting, it's not God. If it's not uplifting, it's always Chanty Cathy. But it's always this moment that we can separate and go, yes, I need to choose otherwise. And the other thought is, again, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. Just be willing to do the work. That willingness is huge. So taking a deep breath in again and just letting it all go. I'm going to thank you for coming here and joining with me tonight. I'm going to, if there were questions, I'll have Lisa come back on and join me. Hi, Lisa.
Hello there.
How are you?
Hello. One of the questions that we had, and there's a slight delay on YouTube, so we're going to give you guys, while we go through this first question, please feel free to write more questions. We'd love to have them, and I'll share them here. But we did have a question asking for suggested reading.
Oh, yes. Well, my all-time favorite book is The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. That is one for sure.
I'm writing this down too.
Yeah. So The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. Another one that's a game changer in my worldview. Another one is Change Your Story, Begin Your Life by Jim Drever. I mean, the disappearance is, I don't even know if I can go anywhere else with that. Start with that.
I love it. I wrote it down, and I'll make sure you guys will update all the show notes within 24 hours, and I'll get these books in there too, so that you guys can find them. And if you're listening on audio later, we'll have them in the show notes for that as well. So.
All right. So that being said, if there's nothing else, I will just invite you then to go to my website if you'd like to take advantage of the free offer that I'm doing, which is a beautiful PDF called The 7 Steps to Inner Peace. And you can go to my website, Sedona Healing Journey, and contact me through that, and I will send you a link for the download. And let's see. And if you would like to also go to my Facebook group called Now That You Have Meditated, What You Do With Your Mind the Rest of the Day Matters, we can continue this kind of discussion connection there as well. So thank you. Thank you, Lisa.